I am Guatemalan. My mom's family is from there, and I have heard all my life how fun it is to spend summers with aunts and cousins eating delicious food down in Asuncion Mita, Jutiapa. Mita is a small town that is growing into a bigger city in the southern region of Guatemala. During my first semester of college, I took a Latin American history class and learned about the Guatemalan Civil War. My mom lived through the war, but never really knew about the genocide of 200,000 indigenous people, the military dictatorship, or all the senseless violence that occurred between 1950 and 1996. I also learned that my mom and our family belong to an ethnic group called Ladinos. Ladinos are people who are not indigenous to the land on which they live, whether they are from European or African descent, or they have abandoned all their indigenous culture and language. This knowledge left me with a big question for my mother. Why do you think no one in our family talks about the Civil War? So, when did you first go to Guatemala and what do you remember about it?
I've been told stories that I went to Guatemala when I was around 6 months old. My mother decided to go visit my grandmother because my mother's entire family lives in Guatemala. So I was there from around 6 months, is what I've been told, till I was almost 5 years old. I don't remember a lot. I was young. I do remember, but I don't remember. But I know that I went to pre-K, but I was very sick all the time. And I know that one of the reasons I love coffee is because I was always given a little coffee when I lived in Guatemala. Children are just given coffee all the time. It's just more milk than coffee, but that's something that children always have is coffee.
Why did you love going to Guatemala?
I felt connected to it. My mother always cooked for us Guatemalan food, and for a long time, from when I was 5 till I was 12, I didn't go. So going back meant being able to hang out with cousins and being able to go out. Everyone in the town knows my family, so couldn't get in trouble. So my mother would always let us go out. Like if I know that when my grandfather used to come to eat at our cousin Eva's house, he was told, oh, someone just told me that they saw you over hanging out over by the park, or someone saw you at the market, and that was true for my sisters and for myself. So there was always, like, you felt a sense of just some liberty to do things and
Safety?
a safe place to be, so that we can just be around.
Did you encounter anything to do with the Civil War?
I don't know if it's from the town. Most of the time I would go to Guatemala. We would arrive in Guatemala City and go directly to the town. We do a little bit of touristy things, but not many. So in the town, it felt very safe. I never encountered anything. The one recollection I do have is that on the way from Guatemala City to the town, you pass a military base, and that is in right outside Jutiapa, which Mita is in the department of Jutiapa, and so right outside Jutiapa, I remember looking at this big site where there's a huge wall outside it, and I'm asking my mother, "Oh, what is that? Like, what is that we're passing?" And she said, "Oh, that's a military base." So that's the only recollection here in the area we live in. We're not really close to any military base, so I never knew what a military base would look like, and just that's one thing I remember, but not anything firsthand.
Do you think anybody had knowledge? I know this is speculation, but
I'm sure my mother did, because I think going back and talking to family, she must have, but I think we were just shielded from that, and it was never discussed in front of us, and she probably didn't want us to feel unsafe going back and having to go into Guatemala City or doing anything touristy, so she never shared any of that with us.
how do you think privilege plays a role into essentially our ignorance?
I think privilege plays a role because of our family being pretty well off, well to do in Guatemala, because we own land. Most of our family is much lighter skinned, and thing I particularly remember, and actually to this day I still experience when I go to Guatemala, is how the indigenous people are referred to in Mita. For a long time, still today, when there's market days on Sundays and one other day in the week, I don't remember what day it is, and a lot of people come into the town to sell, it's always like, oh, are you going to go buy the vegetables from, derogatory name that they refer to the indigenous people. So I think just the fact that our family is lighter skinned and have always held businesses and have owned property in the town, and just the immediate town. The town is spread now, but it's the immediate town is like the place where if you have land there, you're more well off to do.
When you were in college, you studied political science and you focused a lot in, the region that our family's from. Your thesis is on El Salvador, Honduras, and Guatemala. Was there anything that you learned in that time that ever kind of made you question our family? Or was it just kind of just another history you learned?
Yeah, I felt in terms of I chose the topic of my thesis based on I liked international politics more than I liked American politics. So if I was going to choose a region, I felt like, why not study the region where I had come from? But even as I was writing the thesis, and then I continued to go to Guatemala after that, I felt like I didn't really feel connected. Like I kind of feel silly now that I didn't maybe pay attention a little bit more to what I was writing about, to then maybe reflect more on what it was what had been going on in Guatemala. But I think just unfortunately it's because I wasn't exposed to it.
I've inherited the silences of my family's history. I may never know the true scope of my family's involvement with the war, but what I can do now is acknowledge and fill in our silences by learning all that I can.